Hey guys, I just wanted to talk today about one of my favorite quarry monsters. Definitely my favorite Node 1 quarry monster, though that might change because I haven't played the Gorm yet. But he's on the way, so might make a video on him in the future. This guy here is the Crimson Crocodile from the Gambler's Chest. It was just released not too long ago, and I have been hunting a ton of these guys so far. I'm going to try not to spoil too much, but I will be talking about the showdown and some of the mechanics in play during his fight. So if you want everything to be a surprise, I'd recommend waiting to play it first before watching this. Overall, though, I do recommend adding this guy to your campaign. I recommend getting the Gambler's Chest just in general. I think the Crimson Croc is a ton of fun, and he adds a lot to the early game. And early game is very important in Kingdom Death. So what makes this guy worth your time? Well, first of all, let's start with the model, because I think the model is pretty important, especially considering this is a Node 1 monster, so you're going to be handling this guy quite a lot. And I think they did a really good job on his design because he is very solidly built. I have handled this guy dozens of times so far, and I'm not worried about any part of him breaking. He's very easy to transport, so if you want to go over to a friend's house and show them the game, and this is a great guy to bring along in that case. It'll hold up. As for his design, he's a crocodile covered in human fingers, obviously. Now these fingers are actually scabs, narratively speaking, and what happens is when you hit him in the showdown, his wounds scab up with these fingers and protect him. Something really creepy about these scabs is they crackle and pop and squirm around, kind of like if you're cracking your knuckles. And they do that during the whole fight, which is just terrible. And I think it's great. A lot of his resource cards like to go into detail about how pale the flesh on this guy is. And I think that contrasts really well with the whole vascular imagery they're going for. The red and the white look really good together, and obviously you can paint them however you want, but I just decided to go with the classic scheme. Something that separates the Crimson Croc from a lot of the other quarry monsters is the fact that he's smiling. It's almost like he's laughing at you. And you could just chalk this up to him being a crocodile if you wanted to, but when you actually play against this guy and see his personality come out, it makes a lot more sense why he's depicted like this. Which kind of brings me into his lore a little bit. I think all of that fits really well, since he's sort of based on a vampire. He even has an AI card called Vampire Bite, which I think is really cool. Like a vampire, the Crimson Croc is intelligent and sadistic. He's not like other quarry beasts who are just mindless animals. This guy, he knows exactly what he's doing, and he kind of relishes in the suffering of the survivors. And that's something that makes him super unique, in my opinion. You'll see that as like a reoccurring theme in his story events, just this like need to inflict pain and terror on whoever he comes across, and I don't know, it's just something I like about him. You don't see that a lot with like the White Lion or even the Gorm, as far as I can tell. How does that all reflect in his fight? Very well, actually. One of the main mechanics you'll see with his showdown is the terrified survivor status. And this is something that just happens to you when you're at 0 insanity, or some cards can just give it to you. I don't want to say you're automatically dead when this happens to you, but it's definitely something the monster is going to use against you, so bring lots of insanity. Also, having some of his gear that you get from the Crimson Crockery will definitely help with that, but for the most part, just stock up on insanity. Another thing I want to talk about is the coagulated deck. Now, this is actually a big part of what makes the fight fun for me, because it makes positioning super important. Basically how it works is you hit this guy, and the hit location will tell you to archive the card and draw from the coagulated deck. And you put that on top of the hit locations deck. Narratively, you hit this guy, his blood congeals and hardens into these scabs all over him. And every time it does that, it'll have a weak spot you have to hit. And if you don't hit that weak spot, you don't hit him. So you'll have rounds where everything depends on whether one guy on his side or in his front or wherever basically needs to hit that location. Otherwise, the rest of your survivors won't be able to hit him. This isn't always a bad thing, because oftentimes the weak points will give you strength to wound that location. So you might be getting an easier wound than you were initially expecting. And I think that's great. I think it mixes it up a little bit and adds some good parts to him, some bad parts to him, and he's just a real fun guy to fight. Now let's talk about the some of the gear that you can get from him. A lot of the gear you can make in the Crimson Crockery has synergy with bleeding tokens, which is really cool. Some make you gain bleeding tokens, some make it so you need extra bleeding token to die. And I think that fits in really well with the whole bleeding shtick he's got going for him. Just everything kind of revolves around blood, and I think that's a really interesting theme for the fight. The armor set looks really cool. Probably one of the coolest armor sets in the game, in my opinion. So I'd advise making at least one full set, just so you can use the models, because those models are amazing. I believe it's the helmet. The helmet has like an ability where you can spend your action for a mind lock token, and the mind lock token protects you from brain damage, which is really good with the Crimson Croc because of his ability Finger Strum. It does a lot of brain damage, and not to mention he has another ability, I forget what it's called, but basically brain damage ends up doing real damage to you. Like, you still have to roll on the damage dice to see where it hits you, because his brain damage just translates into actual damage. So yeah, it's good to have some of his gear to protect against that. The Giggling Scythe is probably one of the coolest weapons in the game, in my opinion. It has a really cool model, and it's just really good. Really hard to make. Keep that in mind, but it's really good. I would recommend making one if you can. The honed mechanic, a lot of his weapons will have a honed mechanic, which gives you plus strength to wound, as long as you don't hit a super dense location or a parry. This starts to kind of lose its luster around level 2 if you're fighting level 2 crocs. So, I don't know. I can't recommend it too much. It's not the best thing about the gear. But it does help early on with those early fights. So, just something you should think about, something you should probably know. The Blood Compass Lantern is cool. It helps out a lot if you draw a bad hit location. I don't think it works on traps, unfortunately. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you can use it to get around traps. I think with traps you're just doomed. But other than that, all the gear is solid. So, definitely worth it. In general, I think the Crimson Crocodile is a great Node 1 quarry, and a great addition to the game. Let me know if you want my opinion on any of the other monsters, and have a great day.